England are through in the group, well, through in the World Cup. Never mind the group, through to the knockout stages. I believe it might be Senegal in the next round. And they do so by topping the group with USA in second place after they managed to squeeze past Iran. We beat Wales 3-0 in the end, and it was easy. It was a bit of a stroll, to be honest with you. There wasn't much coming from Wales at all, it has to be said. I think I expected a little bit more urgency from them, but reading between the lines, it was almost as if they were resigned to their fate. Long before a ball was kicked, they weren't pressing England's back line at all. There were obvious areas of weakness in the England team, maybe some players to try and test who hadn't featured too much, but it never really manifested itself. It never really turned into a massively competitive game. And if I was going to give you the condensed version, which I will now, and then I'll give you a few more details afterwards, then really it was England who were just basically in cruise control at half time, keeping it tight, and then basically opened up an accelerator and then really sort of pressed forward and sealed the game in the second half with 2 goals from Marcus Rashford and 1 from Phil Foden. Was really evident at the end of the game, by the way, that they had given up. I mean, it really felt like they could have really done without the extra time at the end. Gareth Bale went off at half time. It was no miss. I spoke with Irish Tommy in the build-up show, myself, Tommy and Charlie. Tommy alluded to the fact that he's a shadow of his former self. Not Tommy. Tommy isn't the shadow of his former self. Tommy alluded to the fact that Gareth Bale was a shadow of his former self. And that was really very much the case there. He was operating on the periphery of the game. Rashford had an early miss in that game. And it's probably worth saying that there were some really nice passing moves from England, actually. And I don't know how much we'll read into it. That's a subject for another day, I think, quite possibly. But I will say this much. Declan Rice was playing very, very well in that game. Of course, it will always be countered that there was no test. There was no... Wales were the worst team in the group, so they didn't really pose too much of a test. But it wasn't like Declan Rice had a ton of attacking work to do. It was more a case of because there was no defensive work that he's doing, he went and did some attacking work, basically. He wasn't put under pressure when he needed to intercept and win the ball. He did so, but I felt he played probably 10 yards more elevated up the pitch than he normally would or normally does do in an England shirt. He doesn't play for England like he plays for West Ham, but we saw maybe a little bit more of that today. But anyway, England played some good football. 0-0 at half time. Little or no effort from Wales. There was a lot of talk, wasn't there? And I totally get it from the Welsh team, but there was a lot of talk going into it that Wales were up for this. They knew what they had to do, and they were driven, they were determined. And I saw a sort of rousing team talk from Michael Sheen. As I say, it never really manifested itself. They did. It was clear when they started playing they didn't feel that they could win that game. And so it proved. Second half started, and what he'd done, Southgate, is he'd switched Foden and Rashford over. So he started off with Foden on the right in the first half, with Rashford on the left. He swapped them over in the second half. We saw an immediate impact after 5 minutes of the second half. So on the 50th minute, Foden went on a really, really nice driving run from the left-hand side, jinking, twisting, basically got hacked down, won a free kick. And we'd had a couple of free kicks before that, actually. We'd had a sight. I don't know if you noticed one where Declan Rice had been lining up to take one of the free kicks, and that was very, very interesting. But anyway, nobody was fooled, were they? None of us thought that Declan Rice would be taking a free kick. And however, when it got to one that was close enough where you could have a really good shot, Declan Rice wasn't even in the mix. So it was really whether Luke Shaw was going to hit it or whether Rashford was going to hit it. And Rashford hit it, and he hit it really well and scored a great goal, a magnificent goal. The goalkeeper should have done better. If I was watching West Ham and Fabianski hadn't got to that, I would have been moaning about it. I know that. But, I think the goalkeeper was unsighted. I don't think there wasn't a spotter in the wall. So you've got to take advantage of it. But it was a really good strike from Rashford. And Rashford was playing well. He's certainly given Gareth Southgate something to think about. There's no doubt about that at all. The second goal, almost straight away from kickoff, we won the ball, and it was a really, really, really good goal, actually. Rashford won the ball back, and the second ball sort of trickled out to Harry Kane, who was on the right-hand side. Harry Kane was on the right wing, squared it over, an immediate cross. I say squared it over. It was a cross. It was a low driven cross to the far post. Phil Foden was there to tap it in. I say tap it in. There'll be a lot of players that missed that, but he's a quality player, isn't he? And he was able to keep it low, keep it firm. And it went 2-0. I mean, 2 goals in the space of a minute. I would imagine. I would imagine that when the scoreline is done, when you look at the review of the game, when you actually go and read it, it will say Rashford goal 50 minutes, Foden goal 51 minutes. It really was that quick. England were in the England were in the ascendancy at that point. Wales did have a little go. And it was a bit weird, actually, that it took England to be 2-0 up, or should we say Wales to be 2-0 down, for them to have a go and sort of get motivated. And when I say that, Daniel James had a shot, good shot. I mean, it was only a yard wide, good curling shot, didn't trouble the keeper. But shortly after that, Kiefer Moore, big old lump he is, isn't he? I noticed that when he played against West Ham earlier in the season. He had a really, really sort of fierce shot and forced Pickford into a save. And that was it. Look, it doesn't bother me. I'm an England fan, obviously, and I'm pleased we're through. But I think if I was a Welsh fan, I'd be frustrated. Why didn't that happen at the start of the game? At that point, it's almost insurmountable. I was going to say England aren't going to concede 3 goals. I guess we could, but I mean, it wasn't going to happen. They had a little flurry. They tried twice. They had 2 attacks. The Moore shot resulted in a corner, so they kept it up there for a minute or so. And then there was a raft of changes, loads of changes. Let me just refer to my notes here. Kane for Wilson. Wilson looked sharp. Has to be said. Kane for Wilson. Walker for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Rice for Phillips. So, really important miles in the legs for Phillips there, certainly, because he's only played 50-odd minutes, I think, in the Premier League this season since he signed for Man City. And Trippier came on for Luke Shaw to play at left back. It was sort of made you really aware, didn't it, when that happened, what slim options we've got at left back. For basically the first choice right back was playing at left back. Anyway, we scored another goal. Really good goal, and it was actually Calvin Phillips. Played a sort of long ball down the line. He was in a sort of more of a defensive midfield position, quite deep. Played the ball down the line, and Rashford picked up on it, dribbled in from the left. Just carried the ball into the area, kept on going, had a shot down between Danny Ward's legs, through the keeper's legs, into the goal. Again, the goalkeeper will be disappointed that he didn't do better with that goal, but Rashford deserved it. It was a really good performance from him, has to be said. And as I say, we'll give Southgate some interesting options, good options though, really, really good options. But will Rashford be one of his chosen 2 wide players? I think there's more of I think he's got 3 goals now in this World Cup, Rashford. I think he's got a more pressing case for a place in the starting lineup than Raheem Sterling has. I think that's certainly would be the case. So that's going to be an interesting one for Gareth Southgate, particularly given that Foden played very well, particularly given that Saka, I thought, was excellent in the first game, and Grealish, every time he comes on, looks dangerous. Almost scored a goal at the end there as well. But maybe, just maybe, that's how Gareth Southgate's going to like it, sort of Grealish coming on as a sub. Overall, Bellingham played really well, really, really well. I think that was tough for Wales to get a stranglehold in the midfield. I mean, we're all critical of Jordan Henderson, but it's interesting to hear what the commentator had said about him. The commentator was saying that he hadn't stopped talking all game. The commentator said every time that the stadium went silent, all you could hear was Jordan Henderson's voice. I sort of took 2 things from that comment, which the first one was, well done, Jordan Henderson, and good to have those leadership qualities on there. I remember thinking it myself when we were when it was lockdown and before Premier League football started filtering in artificial noise, we could hear how loud everybody was, and I found it quite an education listening to West Ham and listening to the bench and there were players that, that were gobby in the West Ham team that I wasn't even aware of. It had sort of, that sort of COVID football not happened. So I thought, good for Jordan Henderson. But I thought, pretty damning, really, isn't it, that somebody would say in a World Cup every time the stadium goes silent, all you can hear is Jordan Henderson. Anyway, that's something different. I'm sure people that were over there would have been delighted, but the England fans, at least. It's hard to talk about Maguire or Trippier or John Stones. They're in trouble. John Stones probably should have scored right at the end. I know I've already said it. Wilson looked sharp. Wilson looked really, really sharp. He's an unselfish player, Wilson. I like him. I didn't like him initially, has to be said, because if you remember when Bournemouth first got promoted, I think it might have even been first game of the season. He scored a hat trick against West Ham. So he's never been my favourite player from that point of view. A little bit. It's a little bit grumpy about him doing well against West Ham, but actually, really good player and an unselfish player. And I think Southgate will look at that and he'll enjoy what he saw there. I think the other thing to really consider with it, Southgate's got a decision to make in the next game, and that is he going to go for it or is he going to sit back? We certainly sat back against USA, and I thought we looked crap. And the commentator made the point about us having a lot of options going forward. We really do. I mean, look at what I've just said about the players available in those attacking areas. He's going to play Kane. He will play Kane, and you understand that, rightly so. Not got a problem with that. So if you think there are only two other attacking players who he's going to play, which is a shame, because I do think there's space for one of these guys attacking midfielder, particularly either Grealish or Foden can play as the attacking midfielder. However, he's not going to do that. He's probably going to take two. When you think those two are going to be selected from Rashford, Sterling, Saka, Foden, Grealish, as we've already mentioned. Rashford was excellent today, by the way. England really do have so many options. I've not even mentioned Maddison, of course, apparently is available coming back from injury as well. Should we really be focusing as much on defence as we do? We look a whole lot better when we're allowed to attack, when the shackles are taken off, certainly. But that was a good performance. A good performance against the worst team in the group. That being said, the US drew with Wales. That's good. It is good. It's easy to give Southgate stick, and I do, by the way. But I'm also long in the tooth enough to know that it ain't easy for England to get out of these groups, and he does have a really good knack of doing that. It's what he does next. It's what he does when he gets to the nitty gritty. And I think England have got a real chance, actually. Anyway, listen. What I'll do is I'll record that video now for the upload on the forum channel tomorrow. I sort of discuss England's chances. I think on that, because it's good. It's good. It sort of got me in the mood a little bit. No doubt about it. Call me a fickle England fan. There you go. Wasn't up for this World Cup at all, for obvious reasons. So, well done the team. Well done, Gareth Southgate. Unlucky Wales. Wales will come again. Wales will come again. They'll get another. I don't think it'll be with Bale. Somebody said that Gareth Bale had said this won't be the end of him at international level. I don't think it probably should be, for Wales. There'll be other good players. They'll have another superstar player. They've always had a superstar player, Wales. I can remember, be it Ian Rush or Ryan Giggs or Bale himself. Mark Hughes was really good. They've had some good players, and another one will come through. I've no doubt about that at all. But look, they had a really, really good run last time out when they reached the semi-finals, didn't they? So just not their tournament. Time for a refresh of the team for them. For England, I couldn't help looking at Foden and Bellingham and Rice, thinking, wow, these players are young. These players are young, and these players are really, really good. England have got the basis of a very, very good team. It'll be interesting to see if they mature in this World Cup. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow, first thing in the morning, with another video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the game. If you're an England fan, if you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. It's all very, very much appreciated. Helps with the algorithm and all that sort of stuff. We'll be back. We'll be continuing to cover all England's progress throughout the World Cup. We'll probably drop the World Cup like a stone if England aren't in it. But hey, look, we're an English channel, albeit with a sort of half Scottish sort of tinge. Not me. I'm not the Scottish one.